My name is Uduak Isong Oguamanam. I'm a screenwriter and a movie producer, which is shorthand for knowing what it means to sit before a blank page from dusk till dawn, searching for the perfect opening to what will soon become a movie. It means I know the pressures of creating a new world, unforgettable characters, finding exotic locations, hiring the best acting talent, hiring the finest crew, shooting within a set number of days, usually no longer than 14, and within a budget that won't rent you a place for a year in Lagos. Since my business is selling stories, there's no better way to start than with a famous one. 3 people, a pessimist, an optimist, and an opportunist, sat round a table on which was a glass half filled with water. The pessimist argued that it was half empty. The optimist argued that it was half full. So they turned to the opportunist to settle the matter. He simply reached for the glass and drank it. That opportunist simply describes Nollywood, an industry that didn't count its losses but took the little available and made the most of it. Nollywood is David the shepherd who took down Goliath with a sling and 1 stone. It's the opportunist who didn't complain that the glass wasn't full, didn't check to see if the water met hygiene standards, didn't inspect the glass to see if there was dirt on it, but simply downed the contents regardless of the risk. This has been the story of Nollywood from the very start. Although we've had film in Nigeria since the 60s, legend has it that Nollywood as we know it began in 1992, when Kenneth Nebue, a marketer, had a shop full of tapes that he needed to discard. Nobody wanted to buy the tapes, so he thought, I'll make films and put them in the tapes. That's how Living in Bondage was born, and it became so successful, it sparked the movie revolution. According to Forbes Africa, the industry is valued at $3.2 billion a year and produces around 2,400 films annually. It's the 4th largest economic sector in the country. Each production set employs an average of 20 crew members. In a country where a large number of youth are unemployed, Nollywood sounds to me like the place to be. As the industry grows, the demand for skilled workers increases, such as sound engineers, costumers, editors, directors. We're constantly looking for people. With the support of the Nigerian Department of Culture, EduCore, one of Africa's largest private education providers, is planning to open a multimedia arts and creative center to support Nollywood. They spotted an opportunity and they are grabbing it. I haven't always been in Nollywood, but I have always been a writer. I started to write at a very young age. My first writings were of music lyrics. I wrote songs that I hoped that Michael Jackson would one day sing. You can imagine my pain when he died and my songs were yet unsung. From songwriting, I graduated to poetry, then to short stories. I even managed to win for myself an international award. But in all of this, my audience was Western, and I constantly had to glance over my shoulders to see that they were following. Then suddenly, Nollywood came, and I was free. I was free to write whatever I wanted to write. But to write for a foreign audience, you have to write in a certain manner and of certain topics. Nollywood liberated me. I could simply write about stars, about chairs, about this university, anything at all that caught my fancy. From writing scripts, I graduated to producing movies, and that's how Okon Lagos, my first movie, was born. I'll tell you a brief story about that one. After about 7 scripts, the next step was to make a movie, but I was waiting for a big budget or a big grant, none of which came. Then one day, I stumbled on a movie called Alice, My First Lady on Africa Magic. I liked it, so I waited to see the end credits and realized that the lead actress was a producer, she was a director, and she was the editor, I think. I knew her. She had been trying for many years to sell her script, and nobody took her serious. So she took herself seriously. She learned the ropes from the scratch, and she did a movie by herself. She was all that I needed. I borrowed some money from my brother, made my first movie with very little funds, and it became a hit, outselling most high-budget movies. My point is not that you should go making low-budget movies, but that whatever it is that is in your hands, you can work with it. After the movie, and this is a story that I share as often as I get the chance, University of Leicester carried it. I don't know how they knew. I studied at Leicester for only 1 year. I had made a low-budget movie in faraway Nigeria, but they found it newsworthy and included it in their alumni honor roll. I do not think University of Ibadan, where I spent many years, has any idea about my film. And if they did, all they would do is seek fault, and there would be many, because what we seek, we ultimately find. And this is the bane of my speech, that we're too busy finding faults in this country, we forget to see the many opportunities that abound. Africa Magic is another success story I like to share. Once upon a time, there was only VCD, and they thought, people are consuming this thing, that not everyone can go out and grab copies. Some people don't even know where to grab copies, so they brought the movies into people's homes. Today, Africa Magic has grown to 5 stations, and they are their most watched stations on DSTV. They are, at the moment, spending $300 million to produce local content within the Nigerian market. Now there is Iroko TV by Jason Joku, a young man who came from London with only a dream in his pocket. In no time, he set up Nollywood Love, a channel on YouTube, which generated 150 million views in 2011 and $1.3 million in advertising. Last year, he moved from YouTube to set up Iroko TV on his own platform, where 3 new movies are released every week. It is often referred to as the Netflix of Africa. I went to Berlin some years ago on the strength of one of my screenplays. My contemporaries around the world could not believe that my script had been made into film. They were still on grant and funding application processes. I proudly told them I was Nigerian, and in Nigeria, we don't wait for things to happen, we make them happen. It's been 5 years. Some of them are still waiting for grants that may never come. I am on my 5th feature film. Thank you. In preparing for this speech, I have listened to several TEDx speeches. One of my favorites is Chimamanda's The Danger of a Single Story, which is one of the reasons I'm reading this speech. She read her own. I couldn't agree more. We seem to have such a penchant for negative stories here. I think about agriculture, sports, science. I imagine that there are several people who have thought of innovative ways to move things forward, but nobody saw what they were seeing, and it's not easy to walk alone. I don't know what people see when they see Nollywood, but here's the big picture that I see. I see the industry rising to be the 2nd largest economic sector in the country. I see some of our best movies opening even in cinemas outside Africa. I remember Dora Akunyili and her struggle to rebrand Nigeria. Nollywood is what will make her dream come true. In the nearest future, when people think Nigeria, they will think good people, great nation, because we would have filled their homes, both in Nigeria and abroad, with these messages. And in thinking it, we will eventually become it. I leave you then with one question. That glass in your hand, is it half full or is it half empty? Thank you.